Hi everyone, I'm Lark with the Madison Library District, and thanks for joining us for our teen craft demo today. Today we are going to be doing some tea stain or coffee stain art. Let's get started. Okay, so what you've received in your kit is essentially a piece of watercolor paper and 2 black tea bags. For the purpose of this demo video, I heated up some water ahead of time and put the tea bags in it. I didn't put a ton of water in the cup because the less water, the less diluted the color will be. And I gave you guys 2 tea bags because then it will strengthen the color tone a little, just a little bit. Hot water helps bring out the natural pigmentation of the tea bags. And so what I'm going to do, okay, and something you guys might want to do is grab a piece of cardboard or something to put your watercolor paper on, or you just want something underneath your paper because the tea will kind of bleed through the paper a little bit, and you don't want whatever you're doing this craft on to possibly stain. You can also do this craft with coffee. I'm just using black tea as it was easier to have little packets pre-packaged for you guys. Okay, so what you'll do is after it steeps for a little bit, I'm just going to kind of take my tea bag and make drops in places. And the fun thing about this craft is actually the randomness of how the tea water forms or drops, and because you have some of these like little water spike kind of elements. I could also take my spoon and I can draw it out if I wanted to. There's some incredible artists out there that actually treat tea or coffee almost like a watercolor, and so that is something you could do if you wanted to do that. And then another thing, if you don't want to use the spoon to spread it around, you can kind of tip it up and use it to run off. And the longer the tea sits in one place, the darker that color will be as it just absorbs into the paper and dries. Something I also did before starting this demo video is I took another piece of watercolor paper and I pre-splashed it with some tea so that it could be drying so that I could finish this tutorial for you guys. Okay, so once it's dry, you'll want to grab a pen or Sharpies. I have Sharpies of a couple different sizes because I figured that might be a fun way to go about it. Okay, and if you have a blow dryer at home, you can speed up your drying process. Ideally, you want your paper to be fully dry again. Mine is still a little bit wet, so I'm going to have to draw carefully so that I don't tear the paper. Alrighty, so as I'm looking at this, something with this game, it's kind of like, or this craft, it's kind of like when you look at the clouds and you see different shapes and things in the forms of the clouds. And so essentially you're taking these splotches from your tea stains and you're turning it into something. And so the first thing that stands out to me is this little shape here. So I'm just going to trace it. And now I have an outline around it. And to me, it looks like a little sea urchin creature. And so I'm going to put a little face around it. Let's see if I can zoom in. So I just drew a little face on it to make a sea creature. And then, as I'm looking at this, I see this as an underwater mask, and here's a little scuba kind of a scuba mask connected on to this. So I just grabbed the piece of paper that I initially had poured the water on for you guys to see, and I ended up taking a paper towel and dabbing off some of the excess wet stuff because I mostly wanted to try again. As I look at it, I'm like, I see a fairy-esque creature here, and so let's see if my paper is too wet still to do this. But so I see these like antenna kind of things, and something like that. And this is, I'm seeing it as a wing. And this is another wing. My paper is a little wet still, which is making this a little bit harder. And I love this negative space in here. Again, my paper is not fully dry, so when you do this, you'll want to make sure your paper is actually completely dry, and that will make things easier. And I'm definitely taking some of these shapes and keeping aspects of it, but also removing aspects of it. And if your paper is completely dry, you can take, so this is kind of how this one, let's see, my little person is kind of shaping up to be. Something along the lines of this. It's definitely a fairy sprite kind of feel, so it doesn't have typical structure of most things, but I kind of like the whimsical element of it. I feel like the wings are blowing in the wind, and the sprite spreading thing can't really control how everything is acting. But what I was saying is, if you want to shade in specific places with like, or shade in full shapes, you can totally do that. So like if I was to take this, I could shade in elements to make that its own thing, or I could just leave it as an outlined space. So you can have a lot of fun with this. Again, there's some incredible artists that do things with this. They let the tea steep in a specific place longer to bring darker hues to that. They might even bring in some of their tea again and make new drops to let that start changing the color or darkening it in just spots. And that is totally something you can do. You can take it and treat it like more of a painting. You can just be whimsical and have fun with it, and see what you can find within the tea stain shapes to make a piece of art. So that was our tea stain art, and I hope you guys had fun with it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's really fun and interesting to see what shapes stand out to you. We'll see you next time.